first of all, welcome to Building Connections Doral Talks. I'm your host, Betty Gonzalez. Thank you for tuning in today. And what I really wanted to hone in today is to talk about things that I talk about all the time. But now more than ever, you as a consumer need to really know and understand. So what I'm going to cover today is contingencies and negotiation during the sales process or while you're purchasing a house, or even if you are a seller. Because I want to make sure that you are crystal clear of what the steps are and what is expected, what is not expected, the actual expenses that you incur, whether you buy the property or not. Even if you put an offer on a house and you end up not buying this house, what kind of expenses do you as a consumer end up spending? Even if you are a seller or if you're a buyer. The seller is in the missed opportunity by taking the house off the market. You can miss another real opportunity of purchasing a house. Of somebody else purchasing your house, and you as a buyer have different expenses that I want to cover to you in a second. But what I really want you to know is that there are clear times during a contract period that you negotiate. And what I mean negotiate, you negotiate with the sellers and me as the agent, with the seller's agent. With the seller's agent, right? So first of all, I'm going to start off by the times that you actually need to negotiate. And then I'm going to go into it and tell you what those are. So during time of negotiation, the very first negotiation period that you have is when you actually put in the offer. And what do I mean by that? If you have an agent that educates you, or even if you're an educated person in the buying process because you purchased many properties before, or because you really did your due diligence and did a lot of research before trying to go buy a house, you will know that whenever you put an offer on a property, you want to make sure that this property's value is worth what you actually pay. And how do you know this? Sometimes you can do a search on your own in the documents that are in public access in the county in which this property is. And your agent will help you with this. You don't have to do this all on your own. However, for example, how can we help you? We could do what we call a market analysis, or basically what is the market value of the current property that you're trying to purchase in that specific community for the bedrooms and the square footage and whatever it is, and the kind of property that it is, right? The most recent memory that I have of one is I had a client, they were using a VA loan and they were asking for this property, $540,000, right? So this is the difference when you put in the offer value of the property, you put above the value of that you believe is the house, or you come in at asking or below asking. And I'm going to tell you right now when you can negotiate and what you can negotiate and why it matters. So this is a very popular property because it's brand new on the market. This is when the properties are most attractive. In the very first 2 weeks, any property that come on the market, the very first 2 weeks are the most attractive. So you have to put the right price if you're a seller. Why? Because anybody looking in this neighborhood for that kind of property, whatever property it is, people have a criteria in their mind. They're looking for 3 bedrooms or 4 bedrooms or so many bathrooms or a backyard or not a backyard or a garage, whatever it is that they're looking, they already know. So a buyer is more educated than a seller in this sense because they're in the market and they're looking. So when a new house hit the market, all the new buyers come in like piranhas, right? So they will know if it is a good opportunity based on the price that you put because they're looking at similar properties. That's why we emphasize so much in putting the right price, right? Okay, let me take a pause real quick to check with you guys to see if any of you left me a message. You didn't leave me a message yet, but I truly believe that I am actually live. Okay, what do I mean by the price? So now let me explain. For example, my clients, they were on the market for a specific house in a specific area. And it was really difficult because this is a very desirable area, right? The area, it is close by the new field that is being built for the Miami International Soccer, right? So a lot of investors are buying cash in that area because they know that this area is already gaining more value, right? It's up and coming. Also, it is close to the other cities that are really very much desirable, close to Coral Gables. It's easy drive, right? Okay. So this property was being offered for $540,000. When I did my market analysis with my clients, I know that the real value based on the information, remember, we only go by facts, was 520 max. It could have been 515, 510, 525, but it was on that range in between the 510, 525, 530, no more than that. However, they were asking 540,000. And remember, my clients, most of them use the VA loan. VA is not going to pay more than the house is worth. My clients had cash that they were willing to put in between the cushion. So here we go. My buyers were willing to pay up to $40,000 above market value because they really wanted the area. So I'm telling you that to tell you that you can still do, as long as you do it knowingly and you go with this transaction with your eyes wide open. As long as you know and you make the choices that's best for you and your family. Now, I advise my clients, listen, I don't believe this house is worth $540,000. Their pre-approval letter was for $500,000, and the house was worth a little bit more than $5, right? At that time, they could have gone back and I said, don't worry, we just need to move in because I can feel that this house is going to go by fast. So let's go in at full value, even though we knew that the house might not appraise for the value, right? Mind you, my clients were willing to give cushion between the actual value on what they were willing to pay. So we put it on the contract. But I asked them to not put more than $10,000 above that. Actually, 5. I told them 5 above appraised value. Here we go. It did not appraise. It came at 515. And since my client already agreed to pay 5 above, they still only pay $520,000 for a house that was listed. And they won at 540. Now, why do I tell you this? Because it matters depending on the situation of the client, depending on the situation of the property, how long it's been on the market, the area that it's in, and how desirable. Because this property was not brand new. It needed a lot of work, but it was in an area that investors were willing to buy it because they will fix them up to then either rent them or sell them, right? So that's why they won that offer, even though we knew that that was not the value, right? And my clients ended up paying exactly what it was worth, but you first have to at least be able to play. And what do I say, play? You have to be able to get your offer accepted in order for you to go to the next steps that I'm about to tell you. Now, the next thing in this offer is you have to talk about how much you're willing to pay, which I told you that times for the inspection, it could be anywhere from whatever time up to 15 days. This is in the state of Florida. And if you want that to be a little bit stronger, you shorten those days. Well, we usually put 5 to 7 days, depending on how proactive I know that my client is, or depending on how I can get a feel for the other agent if I have an opportunity to speak to them. Then also you want to know if you're going to use an appraisal. If you are using a loan, any kind of loan, you, my friend, are going to require to have an appraisal done because the bank is not going to loan you money if the house is not worth that value. If you are buying cash, however, you can completely skip that step. But if you're getting a loan, it's a mandatory step that you will have to go through. And by the way, it's one of those non-negotiable things that you will have to pay out of pocket, even if you don't end up buying the house. And finally, closing date, meaning are you going to close in 30 days, 45 days, 60 days? That matters for the seller because depending on how fast or long you take to close on this property, it's going to matter to them because they're going to keep paying out of pocket or not getting their money as fast as they wanted to. So that matters in the contract when you put in the offer. And concessions. What does concession means? Okay. Concessions mean, are you asking for the seller to pay for closing costs? Are you asking for the seller to move out or to fix something in the property? Whatever it is, you put it in the offer, right? So all of that matters when you're putting in an offer to see if your offer is going to get accepted. Now, after that, the next point of negotiation, right now you just negotiate. So now let's say that this house has been on the market for a long time, let's say 75 days. This property has been come down in price 3 or 4 times. Then would I offer above what they're asking? No, it's a different situation because now we know that this house is not on the market within 2 weeks, which is when the properties are high. They have price reductions. In this occasion, then maybe we put at asking price or below asking price. And we probably ask for more concessions. Maybe we can feel comfortable to ask them to pay for closing costs, all of it or a percentage, because we know that these people probably need to transact because they've been on the market for over 2 months and they probably just want to get rid of this property and finish transacting. So depending on the location of the property, depending on how long it's been on the market, depending on the price, all of this matters. How long you plan to close, you're going to take to close. Are you asking for concessions or not? Are you paying cash or are you having a loan and need an appraisal? All of this matters for when you're negotiating. This is only the first step in trying to buy the house. All of this, you talk it over with your real estate agent, right? And then depending on all of the situations that I was telling you about and the circumstances that you're in, then you know what you as a person and as a family, you can afford to do. Now, the second time that you can negotiate. So now remember the first example I gave you. They were offering $540, but the appraiser came at $515. The negotiation at that point, they could have backed out altogether and said to my client, no, because we need $540. I don't want to sell it to you unless it's $540. And if my clients were not willing to put in more than $5,000, then they could have backed out. That's it. That's the time to negotiate that price back and forth, right? Okay, now the next step is the inspections, in which you can have a full home inspection. And this inspection could touch over 400 points in the property. I know it's crazy, but it could be that many. It will include, which by the way, those 400 points, a full house inspection is not mandatory to purchase a house. But what is mandatory is you need in the state of Florida, most likely, a 4-point inspection. A 4-point inspection is comprised of, I wrote it down here, for electrical, heating and cooling, plumbing, and roof. Those are the 4 points. Electrical, HVAC system, plumbing, and roof. Those are the ones, and these are usually visual inspections and the special does. Okay, now at this time is another time where you, my friend, can negotiate. For example, if the house has roof problems, like a recent example of mine, the roof had 2 roofing. It had shingles in one side and on the other side, it had a flat roof. And it did not have the 2-inch slope that it is required from the insurance. Plus, it only had, while the shingles portion of the house, of that roof, had 10 years left in that roof, the other portion only had 3 years left. Insurance companies right here in Florida right now will give you a very hard time. It will be very hard for you to find an insurance that will insure your property if the life of the roof is less than 5 years. If it has less than 5 years, they will not insure you. So you will negotiate. The seller has to say, either we're going to fix it before we close at our own expenses, or you can require, because per insurance, you can still move on with this transaction and they will insure it if they know that a licensed roofer is already working on the property and they know that it's going to be done. And either you negotiate who pays for it. If you really want this house and the seller doesn't have any money, you can probably offer to pay it, or you ask the seller to pay it and potentially pay it at the time of closing, and that's when the proceeds will come. So anyway, so that's time where you negotiate again. But now you're not going to negotiate price at that time. You negotiate price either at the beginning of the transaction or after the appraisal or during the appraisal time, right? Right now, you're negotiating either is the seller going to fix some of these problems, or is the seller going to give me some money at closing so that I can fix it? So let's say that it needs to be fixed, some plumbing, some HVAC, whatever, and it costs $5,000. The seller could say, I could give you $5,000 concessions so that you can fix this problems for closing. That could be the time where you negotiate. Either they fix it or they give you concession, or the seller said, I'm not going to fix anything. And you say, okay, then I'm not going to buy it. Or you said, I'm going to buy it anyway and I pay for that. Either way, this is a time to negotiate that. The next time that you negotiate is when the appraisal comes. So the appraisal will come and it will say, this house is worth $500,000. And you are into contract for $520,000. So here it comes. You as a buyer say, I'm not going to pay more than this house is worth. It's not worth to me to pay more than what it is. And the seller could say, if you don't pay me $520,000, I will not sell you the house, my friend. And everybody goes back. And by the way, a key important factor that I forgot to mention, you will, at the beginning of the transaction, offer some sort of earnest money. This earnest money could be anywhere from 1% of the value of the property to 3%. And this earnest money is going to be in escrow account for the seller to put the house off the market. This earnest money is good faith, saying I will purchase this property and I am willing to risk to lose this money because I'm that serious, as long as you take the house off the market and you only negotiate with me. That's what this is. So let's go back to the appraisal. So if you said no, then we'll sign a release for cancellation and you get your earnest money and the seller gets to put their house back on the market and trying to get the money that they wanted from someone else, right? Or the seller will say, I will give it to you for $510 and you say, I'm willing to come to the middle. I pay $10,000 out of pocket and we can continue. Or the seller could say, I give it for you for $5,000, for $500,000 because you say I have no more money and that's all I can afford, and everybody continue. But I just wanted to let you know, either the seller say no and you said okay, or the seller come up and you come down and you meet in the middle, or the seller come all the way down and you're able to continue to buy this property. So that's the next negotiation where you, my friend, negotiate price. At this time as well, the appraiser will measure the actual size of the property and determine if this house is 15,000 square feet as it is advertised. And then from there, he determines value, right? Before I move on to the last one, this is the time where I let you know that the inspection monies that you use to inspect the house and the appraisal money, if you decide not to buy this house because the seller decided not to lower the house or not to sell it to you at the price that it appraised, you, my friend, I just lost the inspection money and the appraisal money because that will come out of pocket to you because this is an expense you incur whether you buy the property or not. So what happens if the lender has paid for the inspection, for the appraisal, but you haven't paid them? At that time, they will send you a receipt, a bill that you need to pay them, because if you do go through the transaction, then it is paid at closing and it comes out of all the closing costs, right? But if not, if you don't finish that transaction, that you could be out of pocket anywhere for $1,000 to $1,400 to $1,600 out of pocket, and you still didn't buy this property. Is it worth it? 100%. Because if I'm going to buy $500,000 house, I want to know that I'm buying a good product. And if I had to lose $1,000 to determine that this is not the house I need to buy, then this is good. This is a good thing. If you don't have the money, you need to account for that money whenever you're doing all of your assessment and you're doing all of your accounting for the money for closing, down payment. And then you also have to include their inspections and appraisal monies. And the last time that you do a negotiation doing a transaction buying a house is doing the final, which will be the loan approval or clear to close by your lender. Okay, remember how you have a pre-approval letter at the beginning? Well, between the time that you put in the offer and the time that you close, they're going to revise your finances 1,000 times in between. And let's say, my friend, that you decided to buy a new car or you decided to go and buy new furniture, and now your debt to income ratio is not congruent to what you need to have to get this loan. Guess what? They, my friend, can deny you this loan, and now you're not able to purchase this property. So at this time, you can still get your earnest money back because now you were denied the loan. So you also, during the time when you put in the offer, you tell them how long you're going to try to secure this loan and get it clear to close. And it could be 21 days to 30 days. So if they don't give you a clear to close, that's when you can get out of this contract and still get your earnest money. Okay. So you need to know when you're going to do this. You're going to transact at the beginning when you make an offer, because you're going to get educated and you're going to know what kind of property you're buying, in what neighborhood, how long has it been on the market, and what kind of people are buying it. So you need to know how much is the market value of this property so that you know exactly how to negotiate and what kind of offer you present. Because remember, you need to get in the game before you can negotiate any of the other items that I mentioned before, which is inspection, the appraisal, and the loan approval. Also, what comes out of pocket? It comes out of pocket, your inspections and appraisals comes out of pocket whether you buy this property or not. And lastly, what I wanted to talk about is that now we have a new thing that you have to negotiate at the time that you submitted your offer. And this, my friend, is your buyer's agent commission. Because as of August 17th, 2024, you as a buyer, you can choose and negotiate how much you're going to pay your buyer's agent. And this is at the time that you meet your agent that this gets determined, right? And it gets in a contract. And before you even go and look at a house, this has to be done in writing in a contract, and you decided to solely work with this agent. I would advise you to interview 3 to 4 agents before you do get into a contract with any one of the agents that you do the interviews, so that you can decide if you have the same values, the same visions, and the same work ethics. And if the agent moves fast, and if you move fast, if you move slow and the agent moves slow, you decide which agent is going to work best for you based on your personality and their response times, right? What kind of value proposition this agent will bring in the time of negotiating this contract with you. That is a new thing that you will also have to negotiate when you submit an offer. So besides negotiating the price of the property, besides negotiating possible money for closing costs, you will also have to negotiate with the seller if you don't have the monies to pay your agent to help you with the closing costs, to use your agent to pay the commission for your buyer's agent. So this is something new. So you as a buyer, as a consumer, I want you to know that there's many expenses involved in buying a property. You need to save for down payment. If you're not a VA buyer, you need to save for closing costs, which could be 1 to 4% of the total value of the house. You need to save for inspections and appraisals. That is aside from the down payment, and it's aside from closing costs. And you also now, after August 17, 2024, you also now have the expenses of paying your closing cost, your agent's commission, and you can also negotiate it at the time that you put in this offer. And if it's something that the seller is not willing to do, or is something that you cannot afford, it will be a potential reason why you or they don't accept your offer. So my friends, I really hope that I was able to send this message to you today. I'm hoping that you got to hear what I have to say. And remember, you need to be prepared to pay for inspections and appraisals, whether you buy this property or not. And there's only 4 times where you can actually negotiate during the time of buying this house. And I'm telling you this because I have a few clients lately that they do not understand this. And they are really shocked when they realize that they have to come out of pocket, whether they buy this property or not, to pay for inspections and appraisals. And I don't want you to be the next person to feel shocked, because I'm telling you right now, and I have to say this to my clients in the past, I'm saying to you now, and I will say to you again, if you do become our client, when we do our first client agent consultation, and I will let you know all of this stuff again. And I'll remind you, because I know you do my houses every day, but what I will ask you to do is save this video for later, in case you're not ready to buy now and you need to visit it to know exactly what you need to get done. Again, my friends, I hope this one actually recorded and you can hear me. Leave me a comment in the comments below. Let me know if you knew this, if you didn't know this, and if you have any more questions, feel free to call me. All of my information is in the description below. And again, guys, thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next Thursday. Bye. Have a nice day and a nice weekend. Calling all Doral professionals, entrepreneurs, and community influencers. Are you ready to showcase your business, share your knowledge and experience with our engaged audience? Building Connections Doral Talks invites you to become a guest speaker on our podcast. Share your unique perspectives and inspiring stories with our listeners. We believe in the power of your voice in shaping the conversations right here in Doral. Click the link below to submit your information and be part of our next episode. Join us in building connections, sharing knowledge, and growing together. Don't miss this opportunity to be a featured guest on Building Connections Doral Talks. Tune in, connect, share, and grow together with Building Connections Doral Talks, reshaping the way we engage with the diverse voices of Doral, one guest at a time. Doral Talks, your voice, our community. Click the link now on the show notes, the screen, or in the comments below, or just scan the QR code to submit your information as a guest. I hope to see you soon. See you in the next podcast. Bye.